Now what we're going to be going over next is insert mesh brushes, which we're going to use in conjunction with subtools, and these are huge when we start talking about how to get your ideas out quickly in ZBrush and not get too bogged down with importing files, placing files, all that good stuff. And insert mesh brushes are a great way to do that. But before we get to insert mesh brushes, we're going to talk a little bit more about subtool, append, and insert primitive. So we've talked about this before. So we have a subtool here. If I drag this tool, select a tool out of my canvas, go into edit mode here, and say we want to go ahead and append primitive, so it's a ring 3D. Because this was a polymesh 3D, whatever we append to it's also going to be a polymesh 3D, so we don't have to go up to the primitive and say make polymesh 3D. It comes in as that automatically. So we can hit W, because we know how to use the gizmo now. You can even turn on transparency. Now there's transparency and there's transparency ghost. Transparency ghost, incidentally, we'll get to this later, but that will allow you to sculpt through an object. If you have a ghost turned off, you can still see transparency. Well, actually, that's a bad example. If you use your standard brush, you're going to see having ghost turned off is going to kind of stop your brush from working. However, if you turn transparency ghost on with your standard brush, you can sculpt right through it. That's one of the differences between those two. But anyway, now that you have this ring here, we can go through here, we can move this around. We know how to move and scale. The gizmo is right in the middle, so we can go ahead and just put this ring right in this nose. If we want to rotate this head down a little bit, we can hit W. We can go into move multiple, and then we can just rotate all of these at once. There we go. That's a little bit better. Turn that back off. And we're in good shape. So now we have a head subtool. We can alt tap that, and now we have a ring in his nose. So let's move all the way up here. So let's say we want to add an eyeball. So I'm going to alt tap the head just to kind of select it. I'm going to add eyeballs to this guy. So one way you could do that, and this isn't the preferred method, but I still want to talk about subtools and append. So what I can do is I can append a sphere, and that can be used as our eyeball. And you're going to see when I append, it goes all the way down to the bottom of the stack. If I go to insert sphere, it inserts it right underneath the head. So if you want to keep track of your organization, that's a good way to do it. Let's go ahead and touch this last one here, hit delete, and then we'll go back up to this eyeball just underneath the head here. Now let's move this eyeball into place. We'll hit W. We'll go ahead and scale that down. I can't see where it went, so I'm going to hit transpose. There it is. So now I'm going to move this into place here using our camera-based movement, and again, just scaling this down. There we go. So we got an eyeball placed, turn transparency off. And we'll go ahead and move this into place a little bit better. Perfect. So now we have an eyeball in place. Now we have an eyeball, a head, and a nose ring. So you can alt tap the eyeball here, and if you want, you have this one selected. You can duplicate this eyeball, and you can always, try and move this one over into place. But since this is a symmetrical object, one thing we can do is we can go down to geometry. I'm sorry, not geometry. We can go down to deformation, mirror, and we have X, Y, and Z up here. You can turn on X, Y, and Z. For now, what we're going to do is mirror in the X direction. And with this eyeball, we can just hit mirror in X, and it'll go ahead and throw it to the other side exactly on the opposite. If we turn on floor and then turn on the Z plane, you're going to see the Z plane right here, that line right down the middle. And let's turn on Z and Y. You can see that gizmo is right there at the center of the object, and straight up through here is the X-axis, and it just mirrored that duplicated subtool over. So we have our original eyeball, and we have this new eyeball. Generally speaking, we probably want both of these eyeballs as the same subtool. So I'm going to go up here, I'm going to select this top eyeball subtool. We're going to go down here to subtool merge and hit merge down. Hit always OK, and now that merged that top eyeball onto that bottom eyeball, and now they're their own subtool. So we have a head subtool, a nose ring subtool, and an eyeball subtool. Now if we start sculpting on this eyeball, go into our clay brush for example, we start sculpting, we don't have X symmetry turned on. So make sure you tap X, and now we have X symmetry turned on, and we can go ahead and start sculpting. Again, this isn't the best way to do this. We're going to use insert mesh brushes next, but I wanted to show you just how you can append and insert and duplicate and mirror and all that good stuff.